apologies for the delay. We're very grateful to Councillor Mead for stepping in at the last moment to replace someone who couldn't make it. I'm going to read a webcasting announcement first of all, and then I'll introduce the meeting. So this meeting will be webcast, so everyone's reminded of the need to activate your microphones before speaking, and those are the black buttons just in front of you. And equally important, when you stop speaking, if you can press it again to turn your microphone off, and then someone else can turn theirs on. So it'll be recorded. Be capable of repeated viewing. If you're seated down here, which you need to be if you're going to speak, it's likely the recording cameras will capture your image, and therefore your image will become part of the broadcast. If you want to avoid that, you can move to the upper gallery, but then you won't be able to speak. Okay. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Pond and Councillor Sunga. Okay.
And are there any declarations of interest?
I've realised one of the objectors is a town councillor from Loughton Residents Association, Councillor Cohen, but it won't make any difference to any decisions I make, and we haven't had any discussion about it. Just to make you aware,
Okay.
I'm one of the objectors.
Sorry, I too would be the same.
Okay.
Can you just repeat that? We didn't.
Yeah, we both know one of the town councillors is a member of our Loughton Residents Association.
Okay, we'll note that. Okay, so thanks very much for coming along today. The procedure we're going to follow is set out on page 9 of the agenda, which hopefully you've all seen. But essentially, in a moment, I'll ask you to introduce yourselves, and I'll introduce the people up here. Then the applicant has a chance to present why they feel the application should be granted once the licensing officer has introduced the application. Those of you who've objected then have a chance to ask questions about what the applicants said. And that is only questions what they said. Your main opportunity to speak comes later on. The objector is then able to make statements, or objectors can then say why they feel they're not happy with the application. And again, the applicant can ask questions of the objectors. The applicant gets a chance to make a final statement at the end to wrap up, ideally not just repeating things that have been said earlier, but also not introducing any new material. Members can also ask questions as well as objectors, and we can ask for clarification from the licensing officer or the legal officer at any point as well. So my name's John Whitehouse. I'm one of the councillors. I'm the chair of the panel, joined with Councillor Allgood and Councillor Mead. We're joined with representatives of Democratic Services who will take the minutes and deal with the webcasting, a representative of Legal Services to give legal advice if needed, and then I'll go around the room and ask you to say who you're here on behalf of, or what your capacity you're in here. So if you start down here, please.
I'm Chris Davis. I'm the rector of St John's Loughton, who are making the application, but I won't be speaking, mainly.
And I'm Sam Davis. I help organise the events for the church, and I'll be speaking today.
Thanks very much. And from this side?
I'm Michael Ruocco. I live at 7 Martrams Avenue, and I'm speaking for myself, I suppose.
Okay, and next to you?
It's my life.
Okay, that's quite all right.
Councillor Barbara Cohen, Town Councillor, Loughton Town Council, and a member of the Loughton Residents Association. I'm speaking against the proposal today, and I actually live in Church Lane, which is opposite the church as well.
Okay, thanks very much. And at the back there?
I'm Judith Walker. I'm a member of the Loughton Residents Association, but I won't be speaking today.
You're observing. Okay.
Yes.
And
hello, I'm the licensing officer. I'm Mrs. Handon Ibrahim, and I'll be presenting the application. Thank you.
okay, so if that's all clear, we'll proceed to consider the application, and I'll ask if you can introduce it, please.
Thank you, Chair. We're here today for an application that's been made by the Parochial Church Council of the Ecclesiastical Parish of St John the Baptist, Loughton, for a new premises licence in respect of the Church Hall and Field at Church Lane, Loughton, IG10 1PD. The applicant is applying for the following licensable activities: the supply of alcohol, both on and off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 10:30 to 2300 hours, non-standard times, Christmas Eve, 10:30 to 23:30 hours, the provision of live music, indoors and outdoors, Monday to Sunday, 10 to 2300 hours, provision of recorded music, indoors and outdoors, Monday to Sunday, 10 to 2300 hours, provision of performance of dance, indoors and outdoors, Monday to Sunday, 10 to 2300 hours. The hours the premises will be open to the public will be Monday to Sunday, 9 to 2300 hours. Non-standard timings, Christmas Eve, will be 9 to 0000 hours. The application was received on the 13th of September 2023. With regards to the consultation, all responsible authorities have received a copy of the application. It was also advertised at the premises and in a local newspaper. The authority has received representations from Loughton Town Council and 9 objections from residents which have been attached. The objections relate to the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Guidance issued by the Secretary of State is the Licensing Act 2003 provides that the licensing authority must have regard to guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182. Sections 2.1 to 2.32 of the guidance are relevant on this application. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms Ibrahim. And now it's over to Ms Davies to present the application, please.
Thank you. The church, I suppose firstly, is it helpful if I give it a bit of a background about the church and that sort of thing, or are you happy with what was in the application?
If you think it's relevant, you should say it.
Okay. So the Church of John the Baptist, Loughton, was built in 1845 and is still a very well-attended church with a thriving community of all ages. The land surrounding the church consists of the churchyard, the church field, a car park, which also contains the church hall, and a scout hut. At the very bottom of the field, the border is made with a few residential houses, and there are 2 houses which border one side of the field and car park. On the other side of the churchyard is a town cemetery. The church is a very outward-facing church, and we currently run a shop in the Broadway in Debden, which hosts several groups such as the mental health support and food bank and other such activities. The hall is in use on a daily basis by local groups and clubs, particularly during term times. Weekdays and evenings are almost fully booked by dance groups, support groups, martial arts, yoga clubs, etc. Saturday mornings, the hall is also in use by a dance group. And on Sunday morning, the church uses the hall for coffee and Sunday school activities and such like. The hall is currently available for private hire bookings such as parties on Saturday evenings and occasionally during school holidays. The church has been running social events almost since it was built, and in more recent years, some of them have become regular fixtures. Currently, the church aim to run a number of different events, some for the church congregation, such as Christmas parties after the annual nativity play, some to enable members of the local community to enjoy a fun event at very low or no cost, such as our pancake parties and summer social, and others are fundraising events such as fireworks and harvest supper. We're applying for a permanent licence for several reasons. We've been using temporary event notices for the last few years, partly to see what sort of difference having a bar at events made to the event. All our events are aimed at all generations, and we have a large number of families that attend. The bar is never the focus of the event, but a pleasant addition. The bar, as with the rest of the event, is run by volunteers. Having a permanent licence, we feel, would benefit us and the local community in a number of ways. We will have a core bar team who will be trained in a variety of ways to ensure the safety of all who attend and our neighbours. And we'll have greater accountability and be able to also have greater flexibility. To date, we have had no issues with drunkenness or antisocial behaviour at any of our events. We've never had any concerns raised by the police or other agencies about our events, and we have not received any complaints from local residents. In fact, many local residents attend our events and enjoy them. The objections raised seem to fall into a few categories, which I hope to address now. I won't address those concerned with things other than the licensing objectives. Firstly, and most concerning for us, was an accusation that previous wedding reception party attendees moved into the field and caused a disturbance and litter. This would have been a private party where the alcohol would have been provided by the host, and as such does not come under the licensing objectives. With a permanent licence, we would be able to consider running a bar at such private events to ensure that such behaviour does not occur. Secondly, the objectives that the licence would lead to further less regulated event bookings or more attractive to weddings and parties. We'll feel that this is a little misguided. The hall is already available for private hire for parties, with alcohol provided by the hirer if they wish. With a permanent licence, we can consider removing that option to bring alcohol and opening the bar at such events, and the event would then be more regulated, as we would be complying with the licensing objectives. There would be no more noise than currently when such hall hire ends. In fact, again, because of the licensing objectives, we'd be compelled to remind people to leave in a quiet and orderly manner, and we'd be supervising the ending of the event. As the hall is almost fully booked throughout the year, we are unlikely to attract more bookings and have hosted only one wedding reception. It was decided after that we cannot host anymore, as the preparation time and dismantling time involved is too long and interrupts our regular weekly bookings, which we had no intention of doing. Another objection is the number of hours in our application. And we agree that it does look excessive without knowing the reasons. It's mainly due to the movement of the church calendar, making it difficult to put specific dates in the application. I did try in the first draft, as a licensing officer well knows. For example, our pancake party can take place anywhere within a 2-month period, depending on when Easter falls. As I've already stated, the vast majority of the time the hall is already booked by regular, highly valued groups, such as the Guide Association, dance groups and slimming groups. These bring us stable income, and we are proud of being a centre of our community. We have absolutely no intention of stopping these groups and opening a bar every day, and it wouldn't be financially viable to do so. The hours are broad to enable us to be flexible as our congregation and the local community changes. Our main events will continue to be on 4 or 5 Saturday evenings throughout the year, the Sunday of our summer social, and evenings such as Shrove Tuesday. A permanent licence would enable us to have the opportunity to have small events and celebrations for our congregations, such as after a confirmation service once a year, or perhaps to have the bar open for half an hour for a celebratory drink before attending midnight mass. One year it may be more appropriate to run a community event in Holy Week during the Easter holidays. The team that organises events are all volunteers, mostly working full-time, and only have the capacity to organise a set number of events each year. We have absolutely no intention of drastically increasing the number of events we run. We do not have the capacity to do this, and we do not wish to stop or annoy our regular bookings by altering when they can and can't run. The biggest concern from local residents seemed to be noise of people leaving, noise from events. In terms of leaving events, we have found that, so far, having a bar at an event has actually meant that leaving is more staggered than when we didn't. Our biggest event by far is fireworks, and having a bar last year meant that rather than everyone leaving as soon as the fireworks had finished, some people stayed behind to have a drink and a snack rather than queuing to leave. The bar was only open about half an hour after the fireworks had finished, but it meant that there was a slower, safer and quieter exit than previous years. We found a similar pattern with our own barn dance recently. Those with young children left before the band had finished. Most left once the music stopped, and a few had a final drink and a chat before heading home. With a permanent licence, we feel that bar staff would be empowered to remind and, if necessary, challenge any attendees after leaving quietly and about leaving quietly and respecting the neighbourhood. In terms of noise from events, we really do not intend to have many events on the field with amplified or unamplified music. We've only had one so far for our summer social this year, where we invited local young people from surrounding schools to play as we celebrated our Patronal Festival. Many residents from neighbouring streets attended the event and very much enjoyed hearing the young people playing different styles of music, and it has proved so popular that we would like to do it again. In its current form, the event ends at 6 p.m, as some of us then go into the church for choral evensong. We'd also like the opportunity to play some music during our fireworks event, which is the only really large-scale event that we have. The application for live and amplified music is broad in terms of hours in order to give us and future PCCs the flexibility to hold events at different times of the year depending on circumstance. For example, in a Jubilee year or for a royal wedding or church anniversary. We may wish to have a late summer evening event. We do not have the capacity to plan more than a few outdoor events each year, nor do we believe that the local community would want to come to any more. We're also mindful that we do not want to annoy our neighbours with frequent or excessive noise, and will continue to monitor noise duration during such events from various locations around the event. As the licensing process is time-consuming and expensive, it was prudent for us to apply for a licence with flexibility to cover all those things for the forthcoming years. In summary, the application was made by the Parochial Church Council, PCC, for a number of reasons which we believe are sound, to ensure that the bar continues to be a safe and worthwhile addition to our events and becomes safer through additional adherence to the licensing objectives and the training of our bar team. To support our events team by having clearer guidelines for ensuring the licensing objectives are met, by reducing costs and time involved in applying for TENs, and to give us an alternative way of managing private hire parties should we need to. I'd like to reiterate that the hall is the hub of our local community, that we have no intention of stopping all our local groups from using it and opening a bar every night instead. The flexibility in opening hours will enable us to change with the church calendar and also respond to local and national events as appropriate. As a parochial church council is open to all residents in the parish, any local resident is able to contact the church office or attend the AGM and raise any concerns they have with events that have taken place in the hall.
Okay, thanks very much for that. You've now in the front row got an opportunity to ask any questions about that. You'll get your chance to make your statement after that, so this should just be restricted to questions on the applications. Have any of you got any? Barbara Cohen, can you put your microphone on, please?
Thank you. From what I understand of your summary or your application there are 3 big events that you do a year, which are the fireworks, the barn dance, and the summer social in the field. So, the private events that you have are nothing to do with this, are they? The private events.
You need to turn off your microphone.
Sorry.
So, yeah.
So currently people can hire the hall for private events, and at present they run themselves and adhere to the hire agreement, and have, if we've ever had any, well, we haven't actually had any complaints, but were there to be any issues that we'd known about, then we would have followed that up with private hire, the people hiring the hall. But having a permanent licence would enable us to change that and restrict the use of alcohol for people hiring the hall if we felt it was necessary, in which case the bar would be run by us and our team at such events. But it gives us the flexibility to think about that because that would then ensure that having a licence would mean we would have to stick to the licensing objectives and the measures that we put down in the licence for adhering to those. So that gives us the PCC the option to review that situation and was it if hiring private hire was becoming an issue in terms of alcohol consumption and behaviour, then that gives us some flexibility to do those. We do have a couple of smaller events in the year, mainly for the congregation things which include a bar on Sundays or whatever, and at the moment they're all, we obviously need to apply for a 10 for each of those.
I don't think we have any issue with your church events because we know that they're very well run and very well organised. But when you say that the private events can actually do what they like because you want the flexibility for them to have their opening hours exactly as you choose, and the amount of these opening hours could be any amount of time as well. That does give us a little bit of a red light to how many events could happen and how long the events could carry on for.
I mean, just to clarify, the meeting here is about the licensable events, so the events which are subject to the application. Meetings which fall outside the Licensing Act are not something the committee can control. So the questions need to be about the application.
But the private events, would they not be part of this?
Private events where the alcohol was sold would fall within the Act, yes.
But that's what we're talking about, weddings and so forth, parties. There would be private events, not run by the church, like the fireworks or the barn dance. I've no issue with those at all. But it's the private events that could happen very often if this licence is granted.
Okay, let Ms Davis respond.
So at the moment, people can already and have been for many years hiring the hall for private events on a Saturday. They are not allowed to sell alcohol at those events, but they can bring their own alcohol to drink. So you could hire the hall for a 60th birthday or a child's baptism or whatever as a private person and bring your own alcohol and consume those. And that's all has been going on as far as I know. Well, certainly since we've been there, but for a long time. So they don't, because there's no sale of alcohol, they don't come under the licensing laws, to our knowledge. What having a permanent licence would enable us to do would be to take a view on how those events happen, and if we felt it was necessary, if those private parties are having an effect on local people, then at that point we could say, well, actually, we won't allow you to bring your own alcohol. We will run a bar and you can buy the alcohol. So at the moment, there's already that private parties happen. The hall is available on Saturday evenings when we're not running an event for people to hire, and they have been doing so for many years. And obviously, within the objections, we've seen two issues, but we've never had any local residents contact the church about private parties that have happened.
I understand that, but if you're given a licence to sell alcohol from first thing in the morning to the last thing at night, it could be abused, not by you and the vicar, but if your management system does change in the months or years to come, you would have that licensing allowance in place, and it really could be taken very in a different way to you have the intention of using it. Is that quite clear?
I think because the bar has to be run by or overseen by a licence holder, and hopefully that will be the Parochial Church Council will take that as a responsibility. We're working through that at the same time. The bar cannot be run by anyone other than us. The bar would be the church's responsibility, so it wouldn't be a private person running the bar. And as I've said, the hall is continuing to be used by all our regular groups on a very regular basis. It's in fact quite difficult to book anything else, and even we have difficulty negotiating when we can run church events because of the bookings. So we don't feel that it would be able to be abused because there are only certain points in the calendar which are kept free for private bookings. And they can't. We have to take responsibility for the running of the bar and for the licensing objectives.
For what you have asked for, you could have an event like a party that goes on all day, all night, often. That's what you're asking for. Your field could be used for music from first thing in the morning to last thing at night, with alcohol served at any time. Whether that is what you're asking for. And I understand that's not your intention at the moment, but somebody else could get hold of your licence and use it in that way.
I mean, that's a statement rather than a question, but I mean, the licence is granted to, a particular body, well, yes, but for the premises. Do you have any questions, Mr. Rocco?
Yeah, my grudge is, after reading the application and living just below the field and the church, it affects us, the volume of sound, when we're having maybe lunch in the garden in the summer, to have very loud music.
So is this a question or is this your statement? I'll come to the statements in a minute.
Well, going by the application, it sounded as music and alcohol was going to go on from early morning to late at night. And
do you want to respond to that?
We weren't very happy about that.
Hopefully I've clarified that the reason for the flexibility and the length of the hours in the licence application was because it was proving quite difficult to pin down specific dates within the licensing application process. It was felt that it was easier to, having tried once to do that, it was felt it was easier to put a wider hours in place. And as we discussed just before we came in here, the plans for using the field are no more than we currently do in terms of the summer and the fireworks. And we've very much taken on board what you've said about the noise. And last year was the first time we used the PA system. We will, or this year, should I say, and we will monitor that and hopefully engage with you in that and what's acceptable and what's not. And we will also have a better system of understanding what the young people are going to play and that sort of thing in terms of volume management and that sort of thing. So hopefully we can work with you on that in the future.
You're saying that, but would you keep to your word? I mean, would it get abused if the licence is granted?
As the licence is granted to the Parochial Church Council, they're the only ones that can authorise events on the field, and they are responsible for those events and responsible and will be held accountable to the police and the environmental health and that sort of thing. So if we were not sticking to the licensing objectives and the points that we put in our application about how we will manage those, then the licence would be removed. So we would be very mindful, and in fact we feel this is probably a better way of holding us to account and making sure that everything is run in a right way and a thought through way than kind of ad hoc applications.
Okay, do councillors have any questions? Councillor Mead?
Okay, so what kind of experience will the staff that are running the bar be staff that you have now, or will they be staff that you employ that have experience in selling alcohol? That's the first question.
One of the members of our congregation is a personal licence holder and has been working with us through the application process, and also for our ad hoc events that we've had tens for, and we will train the staff that work in the bar, because obviously in the licence application we've put in various measures that we fully intend to comply with, about training and things like that, about Challenge 25 and that sort of thing. So we have at least one member of the congregation who already is a personal licence holder, and we will ensure that the staff, we want a core team who have been trained in the various things, so that we have a pool of volunteers to rely on for the events that we run.
And what is your understanding, or any of the staff there, any of the people you work with, understanding of noise, how it travels, noise limiters, how you will make sure that if there's a function in the field, you'll know where the noise is travelling, or how to prevent it travelling too far? We had a discussion when we have someone who works with the church on a regular basis with our sound system, and it was them that we hired the PA from, and we had a discussion with them about sound and placement of speakers and that sort of thing. We will, I think, having had the discussion, be a bit more mindful and monitor sound with equipment over a wider distance. I did. On the day that we had the music event, we certainly, a few of us marshals went further outside the field to check noise levels, particularly in the churchyard and cemetery, and that sort of thing, so that we were aware that it wasn't travelling that far and disturbing people who may be there.
But how do you stop sound from travelling?
Councillor Good. It's next.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate, obviously, the calendar dates are going to change because of religious festivals, etc. But realistically, how many of those dates would not fall on a weekend, would be my question.
At the moment, we tend to move things to the nearest weekend. So, for example, our fireworks is the nearest Saturday to November the 5th. And that I can't put in the licensing application. It's not a possibility to do that. So the majority of our events are at weekends. There are things like Holy Week and Shrove Tuesday and that sort of thing are, so Holy Week and Good Friday and that sort of thing are obviously weekdays. And we wanted the ability to be a bit more flexible in school holidays. And that sort of thing, to have events then during weekdays.
Could you give me a sense of what sort of capacity of the what sort of numbers are we talking about? What's your capacity in the premises?
The hall holds 200 maximum, although quite often we limit it to less than that because we have seated people and food and things like that involved in the events that we're running. The fireworks has a capacity of 1,000 people for insurance purposes in the field and hall combined. The fireworks is the only event that reaches that. I think the summer events we had up to 300 people throughout the event within the hall and the field. We would like that to grow a little bit, but realistically, we don't. The fireworks is the only big event that we want because it takes too much. It's a lot of effort to have that much capacity. So the majority of all our indoor events are aimed at under 200 people, and our external events, the summer one would, 300 to 400, I think, would be our limit.
Okay.
And they're all ticketed.
No, thanks for that. Obviously, you're asking for the same hours and conditions for the indoors and the outs, for the hall and the field. Can you say a bit about the measures you've got in place or would have in place to avoid noise or other nuisance, particularly outdoors?
In terms of public nuisance, we have marshals in place for our big events like fireworks and that sort of thing, monitoring the whole perimeter to ensure that we stick to the right number of people. That's really very important. And also to kind of monitor behaviour and that sort of thing, and safety. I think I've addressed already about noise. Currently, the fireworks, that we have no amplified or unamplified music because you can't have a licence for that on a 10 because it's too many people. So the only noise is the amount of people there in the fireworks. And in the summer, as I said, it was the first event we'd had with amplified music. In terms of leaving the event, we have always kind of monitored that, and people generally, because it's they're family events, apart the fireworks, a lot of people leave as the fireworks finish, but other events tend to be more staggered because people who are different age children want to leave at different times. And so whilst we do have an end of event, quite often not everybody's there at the end, by the time we get to the end, so that we haven't got a mass exodus. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to build in that flexibility. At the moment, I think the latest we've ever had a bar open is 10:30, and that was for our last barn dance. And again, that worked quite well because, as I said, some people left earlier, and there was only a few that left right at the end. So we feel that kind of helped to spread out the leave and the noise of people leaving.
Okay, thanks for that. Did I take it you've got an additional question you wanted to ask that hadn't been asked?
I was just saying, really, my problem is...
Well, if you're just saying, we'll come to your statement in a moment.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Mead.
You mentioned wedding parties. Is there any other parties that you might not do at the moment? I'm thinking 18th birthdays, 21st birthdays. Do you hire the hall for those types of parties at the moment? Is that your intention?
Currently, to my knowledge, the people who hire for birthday parties can on a Saturday, they're all private parties, and we don't. I'm not sure whether they're for 18th or not, but they would be within. They have their own private hire agreement, and because that's private and there is no sale of alcohol there, then we don't. Well, we haven't had any bars for that or anything because it's a private function.
Perhaps I could just clarify. We haven't had any 18th birthday parties. To see our hall, it isn't the most attractive place for an 18th birthday party hall. We have no plans to do so, but we have had there's no necessary regulation in place for that. We just haven't found there's anyone wanting to hire them. And we aren't looking to find that, and to find the space to do it is quite hard.
Yes, thank you, Jane. Obviously, at the moment, you have a number of 10s are issued. So I see this as more of a way of reducing the bureaucracy, shall we say. So if it was awarded, is this actually going to change what you're currently doing? Is there going to be a dramatic change in the use of the church or the church hall, the number of events? If you're saying you're at capacity now and you get a number of 10s, is it actually going to be any different with this? Are there going to be more parties? Are there going to be longer parties? Are there going to be more people, etc.?
In general, no. I think there may be a few smaller functions for church events. It would give us a flexibility for those sort of, as I said, after confirmation service or something like that. It might be something we do. But in terms of large events and that sort of thing, no, we have no intention of increasing the amount. It's what will change is the way that we run the events, the way we train the bar staff. and kind of the planning that goes within that. That's the main thing, and as you said, the reduction in bureaucracy and finance for the tenants each time.
Okay, so we now move on to the objectors' opportunity to make their statements, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions of the objectors. So perhaps I can ask Ms. Cohen to start off.
Thank you. So I do agree that there should be an allowance for alcohol and music in the grounds of the church and in the church hall on a more permanent basis. But although I do not think for a moment that our current vicar, Chris Davis, would abuse this licensing application request, we don't know in the future the management of the church and if there's any ideas in the future that could happen if you were given a license that was this wide. 10 a.m. till 11 p.m. 7 days a week. It could be used for something like music rehearsals or parties every day of the week. As the church hall is an impermanent material, unlike the church, which is a very solid building, the sound from that hall can carry and could cause noise pollution to people that live in the many roads that surround your church. Likewise, the grounds of the church, there doesn't seem to be any numbers or of sound that you would allow for the music to be of a certain pitch. We do not think that there would be music allowed there at any time, but I think we need to limit the number of occasions that music could be allowed. Say 6 times a year, instead of at the moment you use it 3 or 4 times a year. If we could put more of a limit on it to say 6 times a year, I think that would please the residents a lot more than a wide range that we have on the request. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll ask Mr. Rocker to make his statement, and then I'll ask you if you want to make any questions.
Yeah, well, as I said before, my main thing was volume of sound in the garden during the summer months. I don't really object to the licence as much as being used inside the church hall. Mainly the sound of the noise that would affect us. That's, yeah.
Okay, no, thanks very much. Are there any questions you want to ask of either of the objectors?
The questions about the sound, there obviously is music in the church hall most days of the week. So which doesn't come under the licence because the dance school plays music, the line dancing group play music, the Tiny Tots play music, which is at a fairly reasonable level. We don't find that has a particular goes out except when they open the windows, and if it becomes too loud when they open the windows, which disturbs us in the church building, we ask them to shut the church windows, and then we can kill off the sound. And we don't think the sound in the hall itself does permeate particularly badly. I don't think any of the objections seem to. We have music fairly regularly there at the moment already, and we don't seem to have had many complaints. I understand the ones about in the field, and that was that did go to, and that was the first time we'd done it, and we would look to how we place the speakers to have it facing in a different direction so we can work on that. But inside the building, I don't think we've had many complaints about the sound breaking through, particularly with that. That was probably a question.
It was officially a question,
yes.
So I'll let you respond if you want to, but obviously you've heard what...
But obviously, if you are given the licence for alcohol and your church hall is given to people to have things like stag nights or hen parties, things could be a little bit more we don't know what the future will bring with giving you a licence that is so open-ended.
Okay. Do councillors have any questions? No. Okay. I mean, what I'm hearing from the objectors, and tell me if I'm wrong, is essentially the concerns you've got are not so much about the current operation, but about the potential for frequent noisy events. Is that essentially what's at the root of the concerns you've got? Okay. Right.
Licensing officer.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I think this is more aimed at the licensing officer. Obviously, all the previous TENS applications, how many of those ever received any objections or complaints thereafter?
No objections, no complaints that I know of. Any current ones, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, you get the opportunity to sum up your case. You don't need to go through everything you've gone through already, but if there's anything you want to sort of highlight or draw to our attention, now's your chance.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone for listening and hearing what we've had to say, and I hope that we've reassured you to a certain extent of our intentions and the way forward. As I said previously, we did attempt to define when we were going to have the event in the original application, and it was a little bit too washy to do that, so which is why we ended up with a broad application. The licence will be held by the Parochial Church Council, and so therefore they will always be responsible for holding the events, and they are a group of elected people, annually elected, a third of them, and representatives of the local community. Most of them live very close to the church, and they are very mindful of their own kind of surroundings and that sort of thing, and responsible for holding the licence as a body. So they will be responsible for adhering to the licensing objectives in all its forms, and hopefully that will mitigate any fears that you have about potential things happening in the future, and what will and will not be allowed to take place within the church, because it's the church and the PCC that run the events and are responsible for the bar and the noise. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for your contributions this morning. What happens next is that we retire, having listened carefully to what you've all said, we retire to consider that and make a decision, and then we'll come back here and announce the decision. You're welcome to stay here and listen to us announce the decision. I can't tell you how long will be. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it doesn't. If you want to go, equally you're welcome to go, and you can catch up on the webcast afterwards, or you'll be notified of the outcome by afterwards. So that's what you do. Is there anything you want to say before we retire? Okay, well, Okay, well, thanks everyone for their patience. We can now let you know the decision, so I've got to read out the formal notice. So the licensing subcommittee considered an application for a premises licence for St John the Baptist Church Hall and Field, Church Lane, Loughton, IG 10 1PD, in accordance with the details starting on page 10 of the agenda. The representations in support and against the application have been taken into account, and we've also considered what is appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives and the relevant parts of the Council's licensing policy and government guidance. During our deliberations in private session, our advisory officers gave us advice on the holding of a licence for the PPCC, mechanisms to control and review premises licences, methods of controlling noise, nuisance outdoors. We noted all the submissions and representations, both oral and written, made in relation to this application. And the decision of the subcommittee is the application for a premises licence in respect of St John the Baptist Church, Hall and Field be granted for supply of alcohol on and off the premises Monday to Sunday, 10:30 to 11 p.m, and non-standard timings, Christmas Eve, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Provision of live music indoors and outdoors Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m, except that there should be no amplified music outdoors after 10 p.m. Provision of recorded music indoors and outdoors Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m, except there should be no amplified music outdoors after 10 p.m. Provision of performance of dance indoors and outdoors Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. The applicant and the persons who have made representations are reminded of their right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of the date of written notification of this decision. That ends the meeting. Thanks everyone very much for their participation. And if you've got any questions afterwards, feel free to contact the licensing department.